So this video is a bit unplanned and is not scripted. I'll be honest, this is probably going to be the most disjointed thing I will create and have created. Normally I script things really well and at least detailed. For this, no, I'm flying by the seat of my pants here because like a couple days ago, I finally finished the entirety of the Cosmere. Brandon Sanderson's collected work, his epic fantasy that spans a lot of different series, books. It's a very unique and really cool method of telling a story. It's also something that directly appeals to me, a lore head. If you're a returning member on this channel, it's pretty obvious to tell, even if you just take a cursory look at my shit lore. I'm a big fan of Warhammer, Trench Crusade, Lancer, Vampire the Masquerade, many more things. I'm a person who likes a universe, taking in everything about it, learning how it works, learning how things work, and dissecting sources. And the part that really appeals to me about the Cosmere is that I get to do that in a very narrative form. Because essentially all this stuff takes place in a single universe, like a actual universe, and it's different planets that all this is going on. There is a universal timeline and a large meta plot that is building, and we recently got like a pretty big step towards what is keying to be like sci-fi galactic warfare, which based. Also not a spoiler, by the way, because that's been basically said as the intention. And I also don't plan on spoiling any of the books. If anything, this is just a long sales pitch and something to resonate with people who might be in my position. But first and foremost, I started my entire journey with this with the Stormlight Archive, The Way of Kings. I heard about this book a bunch. I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and I started getting into it. I heard it was pretty cool. It was. It's genuinely like one of the coolest fantasy stories I've ever read. It's deeply unique, it's super interesting, the characters are well written, everything about it I just completely resonated with me. And a large reason is just because it felt like, and it feels like with Cosmere, Sanderson's style with it is perfectly tailored for what I want. And of course, I think there are critiques that have been made about Sanderson's writing style, some of which I kind of agree with, some of which I don't. One of the things I will immediately levy some criticism at him for is the fact that, man, sometimes he does just repeat himself. There are times where there are chapters where he's saying the same shit again. It just happens. I feel like that's any writer though. If you get really inundated with their work, you're gonna find something. But the parts that really resonated with me is specifically a method of writing he enjoys and he talks about. I like the way he describes it. He describes many other writers, their view and their work as like you're looking through a beautiful stained glass window. You're looking at this story on the other side, but there's something beautiful, flowery that is helping you along this process. That's a lot of other writers with their prose and the way they write, and obviously, that's super cool. Sanderson has described his system as looking at a plain old window. The window isn't fancy, it's not anything crazy, but what you're seeing on the outside is exactly what is happening, and I absolutely love that. It feels like you're being told the entire history of a situation, essentially when the blinds were open on this window, and I really like. And then as well, the fact that everything has an explanation to it. As I've been reading the Cosmere, I've realized a big hang-up I have with many other fantasy things, sci-fi things. I just want there to be an explanation. It doesn't have to be like a fantastic one. I just want to know why something is a thing. I want to know why a thing is done a certain way. And Sanderson does that, specifically with his magic systems, which I think is the big selling point of the Cosmere. It has the coolest magic I've ever seen in a thing, because I want to know exactly what characters can do at any given moment. The terms he made is soft magic, hard magic, and I really, really enjoy hard magic systems or just hard, crunchy systems. I want to know what a character has in their kit at this moment, and they're not going to pull like an ass pull and create a new power with the magic, which this is a preference, obviously. There are many people who have a preference for things to kind of be unexplained. Magic should be magical, things like that. I personally don't find it very tense when the characters can just do whatever they want. It can still be fun. I'm saying this as a fan of like Dragon Ball and JoJo. Like, those are both things where characters will just come up with new bullshit they can do. That's fun. I don't believe these characters are like in danger. I'm not tense during any of this. In a scene where I know exactly what a character can do, what their weaknesses are, what the weaknesses of the system are, what is possible and impossible, I am significantly more drawn in and I am more, I guess, tense in a scene. If I'm meant to worry for this character, I will if they have a system that's like, oh, this one dude is like targeting the fact of the impossibilities of their magical power. They cannot work to get around it in an obvious way, they have to come up with something clever. And then just lore, because the Cosmere is interconnected, where you have this entire universe where all this stuff is happening, and if you read all of it, you can catch all these really fun details. It becomes incredibly overt in like a series. Stormlight, after book 3, it becomes like super crossover-y. There's a lot of little hints. And specifically, the Lost Metal. This book has some Avengers Endgame bullshit going on, and you know what? I'm actually kind of here for it. I started with The Way of Kings. That's where I got into this. I read up to Oathbringer, and then I was like, this is great. I finished it. Oathbringer is probably my favorite Stormlight book, probably my favorite Cosmere book. It's insane. Which, by the way, tier list, I did do this. I wanted to track where my opinions were. Feel free to disagree. I hold all these opinions and I'm not changing. Because in Oathbringer is where I started to catch a couple things. I wasn't even like that well aware of the Cosmere, but there were a couple moments where I'm like, this isn't Rosharan. What planet you from? And like, there's a couple little bits like that. So I decided I should probably just read the rest of this dude's works, huh? Because this appeals to me, his other stuff probably will. So I followed a reading order, that being made by Read and Find Out on YouTube. He made one that is the Raffo reading order, which takes you basically in every little beat of important information. You're like getting it as it goes on and as it becomes important. This is a fantastic reading list, by the way. Also a good channel, you should go check him out. Another good channel, I'm just gonna shove this in here. I've been meaning to. Jasonian, apologies. But this guy makes probably the best production value lore videos I've ever seen. It's all in the Cosmere. He analyzes it incredibly well. He's awesome. You should sub to both of them. I'm putting a link down in the description. But I followed this reading order and it was really fun. I adored catching all these bits as they popped up. I adored the retroactive information I gained. And of course, there are some books that didn't fully meld with me with my tier list, like for example, Elantris. Elantris took a while to hook me, and it's all right. It's really clear it's super early on in his career, and Haratham was like the one dude I loved on it. He was super cool. Also can relate, because Haratham's entire story is based off of Sanderson's experience with his mission trip. He's Mormon, and I'm talking as an ex-Mormon. I can relate. I never went on my mission trip because I didn't want to, but there's a lot of other elements I can catch where I'm like, yeah, I see it. And then, of course, after that, we got some Mistborn. I apologize to the big Mistborn fans because I do have Era 1 kind of lower. I'll be very honest, it's also just early. I can see a lot of flaws with it, and I think I was spoiled with reading Stormlight first before a lot of these early entries. It was solid. I think the finale was a lot better than the first two, and Mistborn Era 2 is probably like my favorite thing. I love Stormlight, I love Roshar, I love it all. Era 2 hits a very specific vibe that I adore. It masters allomancy as like a magic system and makes it super interesting. So I'll be honest, Mistborn's just being able to do anything and following them. All right, whatever. They just have an answer for everything. It's harder for me to care when it comes to Era 2, where everyone has like at most 2 powers and they combo really, really interestingly. Shout out to Niall's 100 lives or 1,000 lives for having the compound ability of gold, where he heals the moment he takes damage. He's like the main villain of book 1, and he is so fun. I love him so much. He's kind of terrifying in that you shoot him, and as the bullet is going through, he is repairing himself. And then the situation becomes, how do you stop a guy who can do this? And it becomes very fascinating. And the part that makes all of this even more fun for me is the Cosmere RPG. Because the part of me that's a huge tabletop nerd examines all these situations, and I'm like, man, these scenes stick. I love that I can know exactly what the characters are capable of at any given moment. I want to use these powers. They seem very gamey in a good way. They seem like powers if you were given at like a video game or a tabletop game, they'd go hard. You'd have a lot of fun. And they're doing that. The Cosmere RPG is coming out like very soon from when this video is posted, like a couple months. And we're gonna get 6 Stormlight magic. And we're also later gonna get Mistborn powers, and I'm so excited. Honestly, I can go on and on about every single one of these books. Like just from the absolute top tier ones I put, secret projects are very fun, but Tress in the Emerald Sea is a very specific story that appeals to me. Essentially the Princess Bride narrated by one specific character who's very prominent in the Cosmere, and it is so much fun. I enjoy a lot of the lines in that book. It is actually funny, which speaking of is a problem I have with some earlier entries. I'll be very honest, this is the biggest, maybe meanest critique I can give to Brandon Sanderson. A lot of his early works, there are characters that are meant to be funny. And this is actually a thing throughout, I guess, the Cosmere. There's just characters that they're written to be funny. And frankly, I'm gonna word this in the meanest way possible, Sanderson is not funny. I don't believe he's a funny man. So when he writes funny characters, I find them incredibly aggravating because I hear their joke and because I'm listening to it at work. Apologies to the real readers out there, I'm not a nerd. No, I just, the best position I can listen to these books is at work. That's the most time I have, and as well, it's really hard for me to like pay attention and process information unless I'm doing something with my hands, which work lets me do. Honestly, the reason I remember all this stuff really well. But there are characters, they're meant to be funny, and then they tell a joke, and I'm like, that is just poorly worded. That could be a lot punchier. That is the reason Warbreaker is a little low on this list, because I'll be very honest, there's one specific character that got on my nerves. He was not funny at all. I liked a lot of parts of his story, but by God, he's not funny. And it's very, very aggravating when characters are like telling him, oh, ha ha ha, you're so funny, and I'm struggling there because the line could be better. I have these characters where I say like, you're not funny. I'll be also mean. Shallan in book 1, not funny. Shallan after book 2 onward, way better of a character. She becomes awesome. I am a Shallan apologist, but like, there aren't many characters in these books that I like don't like. And by don't like, I mean don't like with the intention that you're meant to like them. I don't have many. All the characters I hate are characters you're meant to hate. I think if I had to take the entire Cosmere, every single book, and I had to pick who my actual least favorite characters are, it is that one dude from Warbreaker, and that's a very soft one. Very soft. I forget his name, that's also why I'm saying it vaguely. He's right here. And then second is probably Raoden and Serene from Elantris. Mainly because they're just not interesting. They're just like, oh, I'm good at stuff, and I am good at stuff. I'm good at talking to people. I'm charismatic and funny, and like, that's it. Listen, Haratham and Galadon sell that book. Those are the parts that kept pulling me through. Though I am saying a lot. I'm rambling. I understand. But the position this leaves me in is because, like, I finished every available Cosmere book. I have nothing else. I'm also, like I mentioned jokingly, I'm not a big reader. The books I've read is like Warhammer books or this channel. That's kind of all I really have done. I have a lot of other things I listen to. So like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to read next. I have a little list, the recommendations of people who I trust the opinion of and in my personal life, and then also online. I have collected a little thing of like fantasy, because I want fantasy books, but I want like to kind of fill the Cosmere void in my heart, you know? I want me a series with cool magic, cool powers in general that's explained. I want a cool just fantasy world that's properly explored. I want it to be complicated and intricate and connected. I want the Cosmere again. I'm not gonna have that. It's a very special feeling when you find and get into a thing that you want to experience for the first time again. This project took me a long time. Like, I've been doing this for months and months and months. I think literally when I started reading Stormlight, is when I made my Stormlight video. That's like, I think I was on like book 2 or 3 or something. I think early book 3 or late book 2, I don't remember. Like, that's when I started. I finished like literally a couple days ago. But yeah, I'm gonna have to find something else. I'm looking at like, I don't know, Lightbringer. That's of the description I've heard. That's really similar to what I'm looking for, though I do think of Linkara every time. Those that know. And as well, Wheel of Time, maybe, but the part that throws me off is how everyone I see and know that recommends and loves the Wheel of Time says it sucks. Which, you know what, that's also kind of me. I do that and I like those. So maybe, those are like my 2. I'll figure something out, but I don't know, if you got a recommendation for what I want in a book, I literally just said it, feel free. But other than that, I'm gonna wait for the Cosmere RPG, and I'm gonna wait for Mistborn Era 3. And at some point, I am gonna make a Stormlight lore video for the magic. I promised a part 2 in that first video. I'm going to make it. It's written out. I just don't have access to all the information I will gain the moment the core book drops. That is my problem. I just need the core book to release, because it's all canon. That's the part that's cool. Sanderson's working with them. All the information there is true, accurate canon. I love it. But yeah, unplanned video. So if you like this, just do all the YouTube stuff. Big shout out to my channel members, and then specifically my top tier channel members, Ultra Mega Jesus and Czar Shadow. Legends, both of you, thank you so much. But yeah, that's it. I'm gonna, I don't know, look for books and play Monster Hunter. I've been just playing a lot of Monster Hunter recently. That's all I've been doing. But see ya.